So let's talk about who's got the most to prove next year as a player. In my opinion, this could go many ways. And in my opinion, it all has to do with what happened at the end of this year. At the end of this year, we saw a really big shift in the league in terms of how teams were going, what teams were doing, rebuilding teams or whatever. This free agency was packed with moves. There were a lot of things that were happening. And in my opinion, honestly, I believe that we need to see the league now and be like, okay, this was the free agency that's happening, right? Which players have now most to prove? And in my opinion, there's four players that I want to talk about today. So first player I want to talk about is LeBron James. Look, I know that LeBron is 38, 39 years old. And that is a real factor in his conversation. But as a player who still says that he can give everything to the game, and as a player who has consistently been there and consistently been awarded a position to have a good team, he's managed to do the most with it. He's always took his team to the finals, always had them in a great position, and in my opinion, that's been great. And now, at the ripe age of like 39, he's gonna get another great team. Anthony Davis is there, LeBron is there, and with how he played in last year's playoffs and how he looks, it doesn't look like he's slowing down from 25 points or more. So, in my opinion, if LeBron can still play at the level which he played last season, it doesn't have to be 2020, it doesn't have to be 2018, it doesn't have to be 20, just last season, then we will have to have an expectation that he's going to win a championship. And I believe that just because you're LeBron James, we need to have that expectation. It's the same thing with Michael when he was on the Wizards. Even though people don't like to talk about it, people thought that team was a contender when they originally got Mike, and they thought it was going to turn their season around. And it's because GOAT players have GOAT expectations, and that's the reality that we are going to have for LeBron James. The second player who we have to look at as having the most expectations is definitely Giannis. You know, when we talk about superstars in the league, right now he looks more like a Dwayne Wade right now. You know, but he has the potential to be a LeBron. Well, like a Larry Bird, a Magic Johnson. So in my opinion, right now Giannis for the past few years has been off, and that's true. And it's not to hate on him, but Giannis has definitely been underperforming for the past few years in terms of the playoffs. First round, he's not there. In terms of the second round, he's not there, right? And in terms of like he's lost in the first round this year, in the second round this year, and we all know how many times he's lost in the conference finals. And losing is a part of winning, and that's correct. He's only made ever one of the NBA finals, and he won that one NBA finals. And all the other greats in history, apart from maybe MJ, had years between their championship, windows. But we do have to look at Giannis and go like, how much longer can you take it? Like, yes, you're a great player, you're spectacular, you really know how to play, you know how to score, you know how to rebound, you know how to defend. But when it comes to playing basketball and being a superstar player, you failed to carry your team against worse teams than yours, right? Like if we look at historically the teams which Giannis has faced, the Heat's team last year was probably the worst team in NBA history to ever make an NBA Finals, right? The worst, because even if they had a superstar, right, that superstar was not an MVP caliber player. That superstar was playing well, but it's really like, are you putting that much emphasis on Jimmy Butler as a superstar? And they beat you. Yeah, he had a monster performance, but they beat you. Then the other team was a Celtics team, which went on to lose. And the other teams which have beaten you are teams which are really not deserving to beat you. And this has caused Giannis to have this expectation over him because it's like it's either championship or bust every year. You've shown that you could do it, so now you got to prove that you could do it again. The third player who I want to talk about is a combination. It's a team really, but it's Kevin Durant and Devin Booker. You guys have gone through three set of teammates together, right? Three sets. And I mean three different teammates to help you guys win. You guys have DeAndre Ayton, Chris Paul, and now you guys are gonna have Bradley Beal, right? Devin Booker especially has gone through four, right? Because he's gone also through Mikal Bridges, which was extremely good when he was there. So for these two players, right, they've been ring chasing for years. Devin Booker did it the right way. He got to the finals the right way. They built a team around him. He won, and that caused him to really, reel it in and say, okay, let me, assemble a team which can go to the NBA Finals again and win this time. But he hasn't been able to do that. And that one fact right there has really cost him a lot. Like, Devin Booker is a phenomenal player. He's a great player, but he's never been able to win. And he's a player who idols Kobe, who really prides himself on being a superstar, who's consistently been one of the best players on a championship level team, right? And that just goes to show that he could probably do it, but he still has to prove that he can do it. With Kevin Durant, he's proven that he could do it. He's proven that he can perform. He's proven that he's up there with the greats and that he really is one of the best players in our generation and of all time. But now what he needs to prove is that he can win on a team that's not the Golden State Warriors. I'm sorry, but his rings, I'm not saying, I don't weigh rings, right? Like, a ring is a ring, and if you want a ring, then you want a ring, and I don't weigh it differently. Any different ring, like 2020 or 1998 are the same thing for me. But in my opinion, right, when you look at KD's rings in terms of competition, right, and in terms of team, because I don't weigh rings when it comes to what a ring means, right? Just because you have a ring. But when it comes to teammates, he had the best team of all time around him, and that's a fact. Then finally, the last player with the most to prove is Joel Embiid. You see, like, a guy like Giannis only is on this list because he's already done it. So we're going to expect him to do it again. It's the same thing with Nikola Jokic, right? And it's the same thing with every player that wins a championship, but that's a good expectation. To tell somebody, hey, we're just expecting you to get to that level again, to do it again. That's not bad because they've already done it. But with a guy like Joel Embiid, he hasn't even gotten to the Eastern Conference Finals yet. And he won an MVP. Now, look, in my opinion, MVP is strictly regular season. Because I know a lot of people like to talk about Jokic and what he did in the playoffs and say, that your real MVP. But it's like, nah. In the regular season, Joel Embiid deserved that MVP. He averaged the most points in the NBA. He had great games. He had all of the phenomenal games that you need from an MVP, all of the showstoppers. He had the team, he had the record, he had the amount of wins. Everything was perfect for Joel Embiid to win this MVP in the regular season. But when the playoffs came around, he choked. He choked. Completely choked. And that just caused him to now be left with this team around him which is disgruntled. They don't want to be there, right? Most of the players in Philly don't want to be in Philly. The only players who are excited to play there are PJ Tucker and Tyrese Maxey. And now every player around him, there's something going on, right? And he, as a superstar player, hasn't been able to pull out in the playoffs and say, hey, I am a superstar. I deserve my respect because I'm going to show up in the playoffs. He hasn't been able to do that. And in my opinion, that's a horrible idea. And it's a horrible thing that when your superstar is that touted, is that loved, is that respected, that we have to go and look at him just as a loser. But I digress. Anyway, to end this whole thing off, right, I just want to say that these expectations are based on what you've done, what you're expected to do. These are the biggest expectations, but that doesn't mean that other players don't have them. And that doesn't mean that these expectations should taint your vision about how we look at the game. Like, let's face it, yeah, I mean, everyone has expectations in this game, but we don't need to be punishing anybody because they didn't meet them, you know?